From the sports to the arts, let's talk about a play you've mentioned on the show before. It's by playwright Paul David Power, and he's done a lot for people with disabilities. Tell us a little more about the play Crippled.
So the play, it's intensely personal, and I didn't really appreciate that when I first saw a sort of rough draft version of it in Halifax back in the spring. It was inspired by the passing of Paul's partner, Jonathan White, just a couple of years ago, back in 2013. And after spending 9 years with somebody and building a life together, moving on, finding yourself, forging new relationships can be incredibly difficult and traumatic in the wake of such a loss. And so Paul's own disability, he requires leg braces and uses crutches for mobility issues stemming from a rare form of spina bifida. It's an element in the play, and his lived experience, people's attitudes towards him, sort of discrimination he might have faced, the stigma surrounding having a disability, especially in maybe a small town where people aren't so familiar. It really sort of colors his experience of how he perceives others, the interactions he's having, their attitudes towards him. But mostly the play is about love, loss, and grieving. So it's really universal, something that anybody at all can be related to, regardless of their familiarity or interest in disability-related issues. So the plot, it takes place over the course of an evening on the St. John's waterfront. Paul plays a character named Tony. He loses his crutches in the harbor and is assisted by a stranger, Evan, who sort of wanders onto the scene and takes a bit of a peculiar interest in Tony's personal life. And then rounding out the cast is Cody Bolton, who plays a character who has a somewhat awkward encounter with Tony at the local gay bar, which Tony found upsetting, and that set him off down to the waterfront.
So, we had Paul back on this show back in September. He was talking about a previous play, Roomies. For those who might not be familiar with Paul and his ethos, what does his work primarily focus on?
Roomies was great. It was a far lighter fare, a bit of an odd couple style sitcom comedy set in the 1960s in a university. So again, disability was a bit of an element, and it's something that through all the work he's done, the different organizations he's been a part of, he had really been realizing how little disability-related content there was, how few opportunities for actors with disabilities to participate in theater. And so with all of his work, that will be an element, but really it's personal. It's something where he wants just to make good theater. And so, he had talked about, through a study he had done through the Canada Council of the Arts grant, representation in disability theater, and he didn't want to potentially alienate people that, may just think that disability is going to be front and center. That's going to be, the crux of it. That's going to be the bulk of the content is, overcoming or, whatever stereotypes people may have. So he's calling it integrated theater, which I prefer, and I think it's something that hopefully, maybe takes away some of that stigma, which is really, a lot of the content of this play deals with, and sort of the internalized self-stigma that people start to feel just when they become conditioned from the reactions they're getting from the public.
Very briefly, if people wanted to check out Crippled, do you know where else the play is traveling to? And if not, can you tell us where to get more information?
He's, I think the next stop, he's hoping for a hometown premiere in St. John's, Newfoundland, just where he's from outside St. John's. That's where it's set. And I know he wants to bring it to Halifax as well. It received an amazing reception at Fundy Fringe. It won the Outstanding Production Award, basically, I think, their best in show. And so based on just how incredible it was, he made some brilliant improvements to it from what I had seen back in the spring. I expect it should tour quite far. And to follow along, it would be his website, would be the best stop, paulpower.ca/crippled.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll catch up, I guess next Monday's a holiday, so in 2 weeks' time.
Sounds great. Take care.